And Brandon, let's close out the NFL Big Board 3.0 with our top 5. And before we get into it, make sure to follow us on Twitter at young_19 for Brandon.
Young_Swan19.
Young_Swan19. I said _19. At young_Swan19. At Ricky Widmer for me. At Most Valuable Pod for Most Valuable Podcast. Brandon, the floor is now yours. Take it away with your top 5 for your Big Board 3.0.
At number 5, Deontay Thompson, the safety from Alabama. Number 4, Josh Allen, the D-end for Kentucky. At 3, Ed Oliver, defensive lineman from Houston. At 2, Nick Bosa, the defensive end from The Ohio State. And at number 1, Quinnen Williams, defensive tackle, Alabama.
I'm going to ask you about that in a second, but here's my top 5. Rashawn Gray. I screwed up every time. Rashawn Gray.
Rashawn Gary.
Is it Gary?
It's Gary.
Rashawn Gary, the defensive end from Michigan. One of these days I'll get it right, hopefully before he's drafted. But Rashawn Gary, the defensive end from the Michigan Wolverines. Then at number 4, Devin White. That's not a last name I could screw up. It's an actual color. Linebacker from LSU. Then Josh Allen, not the quarterback in Buffalo, the outside linebacker from Kentucky. Then Quinnen Williams, the defensive tackle from Alabama. And then Nick Bosa at number 1, defensive end, OSU. Brandon, you had the balls to put Nick Bosa at 2. So tell me why you had the balls to do it and why I'm a little chicken shit for switching it at the last second.
Well, the reason why I did it is because Quinnen Williams has been playing the whole season. Quinnen Williams has been lighting it up the entire season for Alabama. He's been making statements game after game after game after game, whereas Nick Bosa withdrew from school. I'm sorry, you had an injury doesn't mean you have to withdraw from school.
We ain't here to play school, Brandon.
But I guess I don't. I do, but I don't understand the reason to do that. We talked about that a long time ago. Yep. So I switched it up because Nick Bosa, that's great. We've got some film on you. You've done some really good things. We saw most of what you did, last season. Quinnen Williams, you showed us a whole lot this year, my man, and a lot down the stretch. His name was being called a whole lot for Alabama in those games and just always making plays. I had to do it. I had to do it because I was looking at it and I thought, I started with Nick Bosa at number 1. And then I went, why the hell do I have Nick Bosa at number 1? What has he done lately? What has he done for me lately?
What have
Nothing.
you done for me lately?
Quinnen Williams, I had to put him in there.
Yeah, and for me, I originally, if we would have done this last week, I had Quinnen Williams and Nick Bosa. I almost said Joey Bosa. Nick Bosa at number 2. And for me, the reason why I switched it was the more I thought about it, I was like, you know what? Quinnen Williams could be the next, like the name you hear is Aaron Donald. Like, oh, he could be as dominant at the next level as Aaron Donald is. And you look at, like, you think about it and you go, okay, yeah, that's nice. That's really nice. Yeah, that's a number 1 pick kind of a player. But then I just started thinking about it and I'm like, Brandon, what is the 2 most important positions, I would say 3 most important positions on a football field. Number 1 is your quarterback. You got to have a good quarterback. Number 2, you got to have guys that'll protect said quarterback, keep him on his feet. Number 3, somebody who's going to get to the other quarterback. And for me, watching the film of Nick Bosa, I am conflicted because when you watch his best game, like the Michigan game from 2017, or even the Oregon State game from this year, which I get it was Oregon State, but still, he looks really good. And he comes from and I don't know how I feel about this when you see kind of other big boards and other scouts and stuff go, oh, well, he comes from a football family. Like, Dad was a football player, Joey Bosa's a football player. He comes from a good football family. And it's like, yeah, I get it. Like, the Longs are good football players. So maybe the Mannings are good football players. The Bosas are good football players. But, to me, I kind of look at that and go, so? Because Joey Bosa's really good, does that mean Nick Bosa's going to be just as good? No, he could be worse. Peyton Manning and Eli, yeah, Eli has more wins over the Patriots in big games, but, I mean, Peyton Manning is the better quarterback over the Eli Manning. But, I mean, for me, the thing that I think about is I watched his game from Wisconsin when it was the Big Ten Championship 2017. And for me, the biggest thing was they just contained him. Like, those big offensive linemen from Wisconsin, I don't know if it's because they ate a lot of cheese curds before the game. They bulked up on that cheese to kind of get a good foundation. Didn't want to see their cholesterol after that. I feel like in the NFL, guys and offensive linemen are going to figure it out. And I know he's got good hand technique. He's got a swim move. He can mess up your hands. But, like, I kept watching his film, and I kept watching that game over and over, and I kept saying the same thing to myself, Brandon. And that thing was, develop a freaking spin move. Like, hit him with a punch and spin around, or spin to the inside, or do something. And that's what I wonder if at the next level, is he going to hit a wall against those good teams, those well-coached teams in the NFL?
You know, I think that, you know, talking about Quinnen Williams again is that he has incredible toughness. Mm-hmm. You know, this guy is absolutely intense on the football field. He's got great speed. That is one of the most important things.
His motor just gets flipped on and it just go.
But it's also one of the most important things. If you have you've got his frame, you've got his size, you've got what he can do, and then you add speed to it.
6'3", 285.
Holy crap! Mm-hmm. Holy crap! I think that is probably one of the biggest things for him. One of the biggest pluses. A guy who is all that, but plus has speed, can get off the ball very, very quickly, and can knock guys down. And before they know it, he's past you and your quarterback's on his ass. That is one of the biggest things for me. Mm-hmm. I think that you'll see that with Nick Bosa as well, is that I think he also has good speed. But I guess I like Quinnen Williams better, and maybe it's because I've been seeing him play more throughout the season. I mean, remember, Nick Bosa went out very early on. This was game 3.
Right before the TCU game.
Yeah. I mean, during the TCU game.
Because it was before, he's just going to miss that game. Or no, wait.
It was in the TCU game.
And then it was, he's not going to come back. Then it was, okay, I'm just leaving school.
Yeah.
And then he was gone. He was done. So, I mean, to me, that's the biggest thing is I don't expect the injury to affect him. Like, I expect him to be back 100%. But it's just the fact of how much is it? Because, like, Mark's a guy, too, where he's mentioned, like, you quit on your team, man. You quit. Like, our NFL scouts and NFL GMs going to ask him at the combine, like, that type of a question and kind of be like, what would you say to someone that says you quit on your team by leaving?
They might, just because they'd be interested in the answer.
Mm-hmm. Just to see how he would answer
whether
that question.
They care or not. They just want to maybe see what the answer would be.
Or how you would answer.
Exactly.
Like, what kind of demeanor do you have?
So I was just going to say, do you want to bring Ed Oliver now into the conversation?
I would say we could bring Ed Oliver and Josh Allen. Because, like, Josh Allen, to me, the thing that, like, yes, he's good. Yes, he had a breakout season. But the thing I look at him and what separates him from Nick Bosa, where Nick Bosa's up here and Josh Allen is down here, is basically Josh Allen doesn't have a second move. He does not. If you beat him in that first move, it's like, well, fuck, what do I do now? Where at least Nick Bosa can get by a little bit better. Josh Allen needs to develop a second move. He needs to if he wants to be successful in the NFL. But you take the side of Quinnen Williams to maybe Ed Oliver, unless you want to say something about Josh.
Well, I was going to say, again, with Ed Oliver, he's got another one. He is really good on penetration, and he is explosive off the ball as well. You know, that's where those two, for me, are similar, very similar in that, is that, boom, it's a snap. And if you So this is where a guy like bringing back in Jonah Williams again, if he is not able to cover that, if that's one of his weaknesses is being able to go against guys who are very fast off the ball, he's going to have to do a little bit more to deal with guys who are coming quickly off the football. And that's where Ed Oliver and Quinnen Williams to me are very, very similar.
The only thing is Quinnen Williams beats him tenfold on size.
Yeah.
Like, that's the biggest red flag for Ed Oliver is that he's 6'1", 274 compared to just, like, you look at him and he looks a little bit smaller than a Quinnen Williams, who just looks like a brick house out there that's just going to go right through your offensive line.
And I was going to say, I think that's one thing that could be the knock to Ed Oliver, why he's not a number one pick in this draft is because so many times this happens for offensive and defensive guys. Well, you don't necessarily fit the mold of the typical, offensive player in this position or the typical defensive player in this position. But I think his best trait would still be his penetration and the way that he is going to get to the football and get to the quarterback, or again, wherever the football is, get to the running back. I think that size will be something that he may have to adjust to in the NFL here, but still with the skills that he has, he'll be just fine.
Yeah, and for me, the interesting thing with Ed Oliver will be when we get to the draft, and the combine's going to play into this. Does he become a faller? Because the thing that is unique is, like we've said, offensive guys may fall just because there's so many, like, offensive guys may fall just because there's so many defensive guys where it's like, yeah, we could really use this position, but let's get it later because there's a really good pass rusher here, and let's get that because that's going to help us and go BPA, where Ed Oliver might fall into the other side of there's Quinnen Williams, there's Clelin Ferrell, there's Kristen Wilkins. There are so many guys that are going to be so close to where it's like, do you kind of like just lose out and do you fall out of the top 10? Do you go to 15 because of just the other defensive guys around you? I don't think he goes to 15. I wouldn't be surprised though if he fell just out of the top 10 based off of the talent that we have, but it'll be unique to see. Last thing I want to ask you, very last thing, very quickly. I forgot to ask you this in the last segment about Kyler Murray. I'll ask you this. Now that we have a definitive decision from him, what are your odds that the Cardinals take him at 1 and trade Josh Rosen?
I want them to so badly.
Because I know you're a Josh Rosen hater.
Hey, he sucks.
You're one of the Josh Rosen haters.
So I think that they're not going to do it. They're not going to do it, but they should. They should, because they would be getting a player that is so much better than what Josh Rosen will ever be able to be. He just won't.
And Kingsbury likes him.
And there is, didn't he say?
Yep, that he was at Texas Tech, that he would take him with the number 1 pick.
Yeah. So now he's available. He's going to come out. He's going to be a liar. And you don't like liars.
Or he trades the pick. Well, I'm sorry, the GM trades the pick.
I'm not sure what we're going to end up seeing there from the Arizona Cardinals, but should they do it? In my mind, absolutely you should do it, but they're probably not going to. They're probably going to end up they may actually just end up keeping the pick and going with one of the defensive guys who I think should be Quinnen Williams.
Bosa or Williams, one of the two. But this is where you guys come in. Let us know what you think down below in the comment section. First off, if you were putting together a big board or you had the number 1 pick, we'll say, who would you go with? Nick Bosa, Quinnen Williams, and also what do you think about a Josh Allen? What do you think about an Ed Oliver? And actually anything we talked about on our big board. If you're on YouTube, make sure you check out the other 2 segments as well, 6 through 15 and 16 through 25. I want to thank you guys for checking out the podcast. Don't forget to support us on Patreon, patreon.com/mostvaluablepodcast. You can also rate and review the podcast on iTunes and Apple Podcasts. Make sure we get that 5-star rating if you please. And then follow us on Twitter. I'm at Ricky Widmer. You say yours, Brandon, because I'm going to screw it up.
Young_Swan19.
And then at Most Valuable Pod for Most Valuable Podcast. I want to thank you guys for watching on YouTube. Thank you guys for listening on podcast services around the world. And as always, have a good day, everybody.